Hello everyone. So today we will be dealing with restitution of conjugal rights, judicial separation, void marriages and voidable marriages. So starting with restitution of conjugal rights, section 9. Basically, the very purpose of marriage is that the legally wedded couple must live together throughout the life, sharing their pleasure and pains. It is a well established principle that both the spouses are equally entitled to matrimonial society and comfort of each other. In case one spouse happens to leave the other from the matrimonial society without any reasonable cause, the deserted spouse can file a petition in the district court for the restitution of conjugal rights. For instance, say if a husband without any reasonable cause leaves his wife and lives elsewhere without any reasonable cause, wife can file a petition for the restitution of conjugal rights of the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. According to the case Krishnamurthy versus Sayamantha Kamani 1977, the burden of proving the reasonable excuse shall be on the person who has withdrawn from the society, which means, say, a wife has deserted her husband, तो द बर्डन ऑफ प्रूफ यानी कि उस रीजनेबल एक्सक्यूज को प्रूफ करना कि वाइफ क्यों हस्बैंड को छोड़ कर गई है, इस चीज़ को वाइफ एक्सप्लेन करेगी, हस्बैंड नहीं. देन वी हैव सर्टेन कंडीशंस विच नीड्स टू बी फुलफिल्ड अंडर सेक्शन 9 for the grant of relief. The first condition here we have is the marriage between the parties must be a valid marriage under section 5 of Hindu Marriage Act 1955. In the previous video we have already discussed about the conditions that are essential for the fulfillment of valid marriage. Let's just quickly recall them. Then we have certain conditions which needs to be fulfilled under section 9 for the grant of relief. The first condition here we have that there must be a valid marriage. In the previous video we have already discussed about the conditions of valid marriage which are given under section 5. Let's just quickly recall them. There were 5 conditions. The first was neither party should have spouse living at the time of marriage. The second condition was the parties must be fit for marriage and the procreation of children, that is, they should not be of unsound mind. Then the third condition we had was the age of the parties, which was 18 for the bride and 21 for the bridegroom. The fourth condition we have the parties should not be in the prohibited relationship. The fifth condition we had was the parties should not also be in sapinda relationship to each other. The second condition here we have is the respondent has withdrawn from the society of the petitioner without any reasonable excuse. The third point we have is the court is satisfied with the truth of the statement made in the petition. The fourth point is there is no legal ground as to why the relief should not be granted. It was therefore held in Sumanbai versus Anand Rao 1976 case that the baseless imputation of unchastity on wife amounts to cruelty and is a reasonable excuse to the wife to withdraw from the society of her husband. तो सिर्फ क्रूएलिटी एक ऐसा ग्राउंड बनता है जिसके बेसिस पर भी रेस्टिट्यूशन ऑफ कॉन्जुगल राइट का रिलीफ ग्रांट हो सकता है. Then the next topic which we have to cover in the restitution of conjugal right portion is the constitutional validity of section 9. Sometimes a decree in favor of the husband under section 9 of the Hindu Marriage Act may deprive a wife from the personal liberty and employment of her choice. Such situations are quite obvious in the society, which is vice versa also. For instance, if a wife is employed in different place, her husband may ask her to resign and join him. If she refuses to resign, the husband may file a petition and the court may direct her to join the husband under section 9. Then the question is whether section 9 of Hindu Marriage Act is violative of article 14 and article 21 of Indian Constitution. In T. Sarita versus T. Venkatasubbiah, AIR 1983, it was held that section 9 was unconstitutional as it was offending article 14 and article 21 of the Indian Constitution. But later, the court opined that the leading idea of section 9 is to preserve the marriage, and it was held that the remedy under section 9 of Hindu Marriage Act is not at all violative of Article 14 and Article 21. It was opined in the case of Saroj Rani versus Sudarshan Kumar, AIR 1984. Then the mode of execution of degree for restitution of conjugal rights is in Order 21, Rule 32 and Rule 33 of Code of Civil Procedure. It provides for the execution of decree for the restitution of conjugal rights. Then we have is judicial separation, that is section 10. Judicial separation basically means the suspension of conjugal rights for some time, that is 1 year. The section lays down either party to a marriage, whether solemnized before or after the commencement of this act, may present a petition praying for a decree for judicial separation. That is, anyone can file for the degree of judicial separation whether their marriage is solemnized before or after the commencement of this act. Then, during the period of judicial separation, the parties to the marriage have no obligation to live together. The course of judicial separation, either party may be entitled to get maintenance from the other, but during this period, the husband or the wife would not acquire the competency to marry afresh because their marriage is not yet dissolved. They are still married. The conjugal rights have just been suspended for a particular time. If they marry during this period, during their judicial separation period, they'll be violating the condition which is specified under section 5 clause 1. Then we have the grounds for judicial separation. Before 1976, the grounds which were available for judicial separation were 6. That is desertion, cruelty, leprosy, venereal disease, insanity or unsoundness of mind, and adultery. But after 1976, there were total 12 grounds. 8 were for both husband and wife and 4 were for wife only. For both husband and wife, there were 8 grounds, that is adultery, cruelty, desertion, conversion, unsoundness of mind, leprosy, venereal disease, renunciation of world, and presumed death. For wife, which were available were bigamy, rape, sodomy, and bestiality, non-resumption of cohabitation after decree or order of maintenance, and fourth was option of puberty. All these grounds we will be discussing in detail when we will be studying topic for divorce. The next topic herein we have is effects and consequences of judicial separation. The very first consequence we have is that the marriage tie is not dissolved. Only the mutual rights and obligations are suspended for a particular period of time. They are not at all obligatory to cohabit with each other. The petitioner, if wife, becomes entitled to alimony, and both husband and wife are entitled for maintenance as the case may be. They cannot marry afresh during their period of judicial separation because the marriage tie is not dissolved. Only the judicial separation grants the suspension of conjugal rights for a particular period of time. And if they marry afresh during this period, they'll be committing bigamy, thereby violating the conditions specified under section 5 clause 1. Then we have is void marriage, section 11, that is nullity of marriage. A void marriage basically is no marriage at all. It does not exist from the very beginning. Any marriage solemnized at the commencement of this act shall be null and void on a petition presented by the either party against the other if it contravenes the condition specified in clause 5, subclause 1, 4 and 5, which are section 5 clause 1 says, if any party to the marriage has a spouse living at the time of marriage. Section 5 clause 4 says, if the parties are within the degree of prohibited relationship unless the custom governing them allows. Section 5 clause 5 says, if the parties are subindas to each other unless the custom governing them allows. Also, section 11, that is of void marriage, is not applicable to the marriages which are solemnized before the commencement of this act. Section 11 is not at all applicable to marriages solemnized before the commencement of Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Then we have are the grounds of void marriages. Some of them we have just discussed. There are 5 grounds. The first one is either party has a spouse living. Second is parties are within the prohibited degree. Third one is parties are subindas to each other. Fourth one is ceremonies are not properly performed. The fifth one is the marriage is in violation of Section 15 of Hindu Marriage Act. Section 15 of Hindu Marriage Act says, when can a divorced person marry again? Divorced person can marry again only if the marriage has been dissolved by a decree of divorce and there is no right of appeal against the decree. And if there is such right of appeal, the appealing time has been expired or the appeal has been dismissed. तो जब भी एक डाइवोर्स पर्सन शादी कर सकता है या तो उसको डाइवोर्स की डिक्री मिल गई हो और उस पर अपील की कोई चांसेस नहीं हो. अगर अपील की चांसेस हों भी तो या तो अपील एक्सपायर हो गई हो उसका टाइम या फिर अपील डिसमिस हो गई हो. देन वी हैव इफेक्ट ऑफ वॉइड मैरिजेस. Under general law, the children born out of the wedlock of void marriages are illegitimate. But according to Section 16 of Hindu Marriage Act, the children born out of such wedlocks are deemed to be legitimate even if the decree of nullity has been passed. The second effect we have is the parties under void marriage have no status of husband and wife. It does not give rise to mutual rights and obligations. Then we have is voidable marriages, that is annulment of marriage, Section 12. Unlike void marriages, they are for all practical purposes valid until and unless its validity is questioned. Then we have are the grounds for voidable marriages. The first ground we have is impotency. The second we have is unsoundness of mind. The third one we have is the use of force or fraud to obtain the consent. The fourth point we have is the pregnancy by some other at the time of marriage which is not been noticed. To get the decree, he has to satisfy the following conditions. That is, he was ignorant of the fact before. The proceedings have been instituted within 1 year of the marriage. The marital intercourse with the consent of the petitioner has not been taken. Let us just do a quick revision for void and voidable marriages. You can also have it here in the tabular form. Let us first do a revision for void marriages. Such marriages does not exist in the eye of law. The court simply passes the decree of nullity since the marriage does no existence at all. Parties can remarry even without the decree of nullity from the court. Wife cannot claim maintenance under Section 125 CRPC. Such marriages are void ab initio, that is, they are void since the very beginning. Parties to a void marriage are criminally liable. In void marriages, not only first wife but a third party who is affected can also bring in a suit for civil court declaring such marriages void. Then we have voidable marriages. Such marriages exist and continues to be valid until and unless it is challenged under Section 12. The court passes the decree after taking into account all the necessary conditions. The parties cannot remarry until and unless the decree is granted from the court. The wife can claim maintenance for voidable marriages. A voidable marriage is regarded as valid until the competent court annuls it. Parties to voidable marriage are not let down with penalty. In voidable marriages, only the parties have the right to annulment of marriages, not the third party. Only the parties concerned can file for voidable marriages, whereas in void marriages, even the third party can file for the suit. I hope the topics are made clear. Thank you so much for watching my videos. This is all for this video. We will continue it in our next video.